Morocco has announced the launch of an aid program to support and rehouse people left homeless after last week's devastating earthquake. Those left homeless will be given temporary shelter in structures designed to withstand cold and bad weather or in reception sites. Nearly $3,000 will be distributed to households affected by the disaster. The program covers residents in some 50,000 homes that had fully or partially collapsed. However, the full extent of people left homeless by the quake, which struck Morocco's high Atlas Mountains, is not known. Most of the devastation and deaths occurred in mountain villages. The powerful magnitude 7 earthquake has killed nearly 3,000 people and injured more than 5,600 since it hit last Friday. The North African country has accepted aid and rescue teams from a limited number of countries. That's Britain, Spain, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates. Our correspondent Giles Gibson is in Marrakesh and joins us now. Hi there, Giles. Giles, what's happening there right now, and any update on the search and rescue progress?
Well, we're now coming up for exactly 1 week since this devastating earthquake struck this country, and indeed those areas in the high Atlas Mountains that were closest to the epicenter. That means, of course, that we have long gone past that initial 72-hour window, which is when search and rescue teams believe that they're most likely to find survivors still trapped under the rubble. However, search and rescue teams are still continuing to battle through some pretty tough conditions up there, hot weather, working through the sun, dust, just desperately trying to find somebody who could still be alive under the rubble. Now, there are cases sometimes in these disasters when people are found many days after that 72-hour window expires, but clearly every minute that ticks by, they just lose a little bit of hope of finding somebody.
Giles, when we spoke with you yesterday, you'd mentioned mild aftershocks. What's the situation now, and what are you hearing about whether the region that was hit by the earthquake is in the clear now?
Yeah, so in the early hours of the morning on Thursday, we had this relatively mild aftershock, although I have to say I was lying in bed at the time in the early hours of the morning when it happened, and the room certainly felt like it was moving a little bit. Otherwise, the city of Marrakesh is very much getting back to normal, and you may be able to see behind me that here in the old city of Marrakesh, there are tourists walking around, they're going to the cafes, they're going to the restaurants, so people are still flying in for their holidays despite this devastating earthquake. And we're actually hearing from, especially from people who work in the tourism sector here, they're saying that they want the world to know that, as far as they're concerned, that Morocco is still safe to visit. They clearly have a lot of fear that this huge disaster, which has been covered all over the world, could potentially affect the tourism sector, which makes up such a large slice of the Moroccan economy.
Giles, what about aid delivery and support crews? What are you seeing or hearing about what and who is coming in and where there may be gaps?
So what we've heard from our team who went up into the mountains over the course of the last few days is that in the bigger villages, they do have the infrastructure in place now to at least look after people's basic needs. So there are tent villages going up, there is food and water flowing into those communities. But really the challenge throughout the response to this crisis has been reaching the much more remote communities that are only accessible at the moment either by helicopter, or what we've also seen is villagers taking matters into their own hands, loading up pack animals with supplies and water, and walking at times for 5 or 6 or 7 hours over those mountain roads just to keep the trickle of supplies going. So I think as we head into the sort of medium term of this response, that again is going to be the focus, trying to make sure that those really remote communities have what they need to get through the autumn and indeed through the winter.